Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
At the end of this video, I'll give you a hypothetical, just like they'd give you in law school. So sometimes people say, Steve, what was law school like? Can you talk about that? At the end of this video, will give you a hypothetical situation as if it was on a final exam, and it ties in with the story, and it'll all make sense then, trust me. So Cole sent me a story, said, Steve, did you see the story on CNN? Where two Pennsylvania teens have been charged with the death of an 8-year-old who was killed by police gunfire. So the teens did not pull the trigger on the fatal shots. It was the police, yet they are charged with it. So Sahar Akbarzai and Elizabeth Joseph wrote the story, and a couple of teenagers have been charged with murder on suspicion of opening fire outside a suburban Philadelphia high school football game. Now, police responded with their own gunfire, and an 8-year-old girl died. And when the dust settled, they figured this all out. They said, it turns out that the police bullets are responsible for the 8-year-old's death. But you got to understand how the law works. So one of the teens was arrested Wednesday, held without bond in connection with this that happened in August. And the second surrendered himself to authorities Thursday afternoon. One of them is 16 years old, one of them is 18 years old. Both teens are charged with murder, even though they did not fire the bullet that killed the victim. Under the laws of this Commonwealth, my office has determined that the two should be held criminally liable for the murder of the child, as well as for the wounding of all of the bystanders. So they are saying all of this can be attributed to these two guys legally, even though in reality they didn't do it. They started it, but we'll get to that. So the two of them exchanged multiple gunshots with each other. So they're shooting at each other following an argument at a football game at a high school in Pennsylvania in the borough of Sharon Hill back in August. The gunfight wounded one person caught in the crossfire, but that led the police, who were near the entrance of the football game, to discharge their weapons. As a result, the gunfire by the officers wounded 3 bystanders, and it tragically killed the victim. Now, the victim was rushed to but pronounced dead at a local hospital that evening, according to the district attorney's statement. She was hit by a single gunshot, according to the medical examiner. And charges against the two men stem from witness accounts and shell casings found at the scene. In addition to murder, both teens face 5 counts of attempted murder, 5 counts of assault and endangerment, and other charges. One of them is charged with carrying a firearm without a license, possession of a weapon, recklessly endangering another person, and the police's, this is all according to the police's criminal complaint. The other one faces the same, but also charged with possession of a prohibited firearm, possession of a firearm by a minor because he was 16. Now, the public defender for the county confirmed that he represents one of these two, but did not give any further details. And as previously reported by CNN, the victim's family has filed a federal lawsuit alleging the officers willfully and maliciously caused her death and injured her sister. The mother and siblings of the child who is the victim here are suing the borough of Sharon Hill, Police Chief Joseph Kelly, and at least 3 Sharon Hill police officers who allegedly shot and were involved in the shooting and the victim's death. That was outside the stadium. I was surprised that the charge of first-degree murder was brought because legally that would be difficult to prove, said the attorney for the victim's family. But I'm cheering for the district attorney, and I hope he wins. He told CNN on Thursday he wants the focus of the case to remain on the conduct of police officers. The district attorney's press release does not change that he, the district attorney, said that the fatal round was shot by the police. On November 18th, a grand jury will review the entire case to determine the use of deadly force by police at the scene and whether or not it was justified. And that's according to a statement from the district attorney. So here's the thing. There's a concept in the law that's referred to as felony murder. And if somebody is committing a felony and it results in the death of somebody, in many states and at common law, they could be charged with not just a felony they were committing, but murder. And it would become first-degree murder because they'd say the fact that you're committing a felony is the same intent necessary to get a first-degree conviction. And it's just simply that something they've had for a long, long time. And the thinking is that there are some crimes out there which, if they go according to plan, nobody gets hurt, but not all crimes go according to plan. And we don't want people committing crimes. We don't want them planning crimes. And we want people to understand that if they commit a crime and somebody gets hurt in the process, they'll be held liable for it. So if you've got two kids shooting at each other and the police get involved and somebody dies, does it really matter who pulled the trigger on the fatal shot? And in Pennsylvania, felony murder. And so here's the example, and I gave you the brief overview there of what felony murder is, right? So I'm going to give you an example, and this is the kind of thing you might see on a final exam as one of the questions at law school. And so they'll give you a hypothetical, what we call a fact pattern, a little short story, a word problem. And you'd say 3 people, Alex, Bob, and Charlie, ABC, coincidentally. The 3 of them sit down in their living room and they decide to rob a bank tomorrow. They're going to rob a bank tomorrow. ABC, going to rob a bank tomorrow. They plan the whole thing. Which bank, how they're going to get there, how they're going to make the getaway, who's going to do what, how we're going to do this. We're going to rob a bank. So the 3 of them go to bed that night, get a good night's sleep before they rob the bank the next morning. When they get up the next morning, Bob and Charlie come out and Alex is still sleeping on the couch. And you go, dude, we're going to rob the bank. And he goes, I'm tired. You guys go on your own. He falls back asleep. And he remains asleep throughout this fact pattern. Bob and Charles go to the bank. Now, they actually haven't got weapons. They're going to do the old finger in the pocket thing, okay? So they go up to the counter. There's a teller there. It's early in the morning. There's only one teller. And with the finger in the pocket thing, he goes, hey, one of them goes, hey, this is a robbery. Give us all the money you got behind the counter there. And the 2 of them are standing at the counter with the old fingers in the pocket thing, like I said. And meanwhile, a little old lady comes in because she's gonna do some business there. And she doesn't catch what's happening here, and she kind of walks up behind one of the robbers, but she's so quiet that she doesn't disturb them. They don't recognize that she's even there. So as they're stuffing the money in the bags to give to the robbers with their fingers in their pockets, a security guard who is sleeping one off kind of wakes up and realizes, oh, bank's being robbed. And the problem is that earlier that day, when he checked into work, he forgot to put on his belt that has all his stuff on it. So he's got a uniform on, but nothing with which he can subdue 2 bank robbers, and they got their hands in their pockets, and he's not sure. He thinks they've got weapons. So he looks over and he's got his lunch. He's got his lunch. So he opens the bag up, and he reaches into the bag, and there's an orange, a fruit. Nothing rhymes with it, but there's an orange. Reaches in the bag, there's an orange. What can he do with it? He's not the brightest security guard, and he's not too brave either, but he thinks I can wing this orange at that guy, hit him in the head, and possibly break up the robbery. Got to do something, right? It's my job. So he takes the orange and he throws it, but he's not talented at throwing things. And he accidentally hits the little old lady in the head, and she falls over and hits her head on the floor, and she dies. The 2 guys at the counter now realize something's happening. They quickly pull their hands out of their pockets, turn around and run away, and they've got no money. They got nothing. They jump in their car and they escape. But later, all 3 of them are caught. The one guy was arrested, still sleeping on his couch. The other 2 guys are in the car. They got arrested, and they immediately squealed and said, hey, we got an accomplice at home sleeping on the couch. Question would often say something to the effect of, discuss, more open-ended. Or it might say, what's the highest crime for which A, asleep on the couch can be charged with? And many people would go, wait, the guy wasn't involved. He's asleep on the couch. What? I mean, isn't that a false arrest if he gets arrested? But then some people go, wait a second. He was involved in the planning. So on some level, he helped plan a bank robbery. But the robbers got nothing. There was no bank robbery. It was an attempted bank robbery. Can you have a conspiracy to commit an attempted bank robbery? By the way, you have to discuss all of these things on a law school final exam. But the biggest question is, what's the highest crime for which he can be charged? At common law, felony murder, first degree murder, felony murder. Because he took part in the planning of a crime. The crime resulted in the death of somebody else. Boom, there you go. And you go, wait a second. It was the guard who threw the orange. Doesn't matter. It's the cops who did the shooting here. You go, wait a second. But they didn't plan for that woman to get hurt. They didn't even know she existed. They might not have even known she did it. She walked in quietly. They hadn't turned around. They didn't see her. They didn't know she existed. And yes, the guy on the couch can be charged with felony murder. And here's the thing. Some people are going to say, wait a second, Steve. The guy fell asleep. He was at home asleep on the couch. And by the way, I've taken that directly from an actual real case out of Florida. But in most states, if you are involved in the planning of a crime as a conspiracy, and you later decide not to partake in the crime, that is not enough to withdraw you from liability for the crime committed by your co-conspirators. You usually have to withdraw from the conspiracy and take steps to stop it, meaning that if the guy on the couch, as soon as they left the house, sat up, jumped on the phone, called 911, said, hey, look, guys, just to let you know, the bank at First and Main's about to get robbed by two guys. They do not have weapons, but they're going to do the old fingers in the pocket thing. And just to let you know, they're coming. And the reason I know this is because I talked to them about it yesterday. And you hope that you somehow get off because you're the one who narked them out. But without taking the active steps to withdraw from the conspiracy, you're still part of the conspiracy. You are therefore liable for everything that happens to the guys in the conspiracy, including the fact that someone died as a result. Felony murder, boom, it's all over. So there you go. So you can take the facts of that case and dress them up a little bit and play around with them and whip that out at parties. The problem is the story kills 5 minutes. And it kills them dead. So that's the law school hypothetical I just gave you. And that's the kind of thing, like I said, you might see on a law exam. And they would tell you, discuss each and every component of every crime for which these people can be charged. And it's not necessarily whether you'd win or lose in those facts. It's what are the reasonable things that a prosecutor would be looking at and spotting and saying, okay, we can charge him with that, we can charge him with that, we can charge him with that, we can charge him with that. And obviously it's up to a jury to decide whether or not the charges are going to stick and result in guilties. So there you go. But back to CNN and Sahar Akbarzai and Elizabeth Joseph, who wrote it, and Cole, who sent it to me. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But as of right now, 2 Pennsylvania teens have been charged with the death of an 8-year-old who was killed by police gunfire. And there's no question it was the police gunfire. But they've been charged. That's how it works. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. The letter Y is the letter of independence. It's the 4th of July.